He said in the boxing community, these are Stephen A's words, this match is, quote, disgusting to people in boxing and a complete disgrace. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that, I don't know how many people really feel that way. Oscar feels that way because Oscar didn't get the fight. If I was doing this deal with Oscar right now, he'd be far from disgusted. I promise you that one. But at the end of the day, anybody who knows anything about fighting, when two men get in there and they square off and they start throwing punches, anything is possible. Anything is possible. And this isn't one of those things where we put together, some type of crazy fight for no reason. This is a fight that the fans demanded. The fans wanted to see this fight. It's the most talked about fight on the planet right now, and it will be the biggest fight ever in the history of two people punching each other. So they can be as disgusted as they want. It's what people want to see.
Stephen A., let's bring you back into the discussion. Dana's point was simply, if Oscar was a part of this, he wouldn't be saying that, neither would most of the boxing community. What are your thoughts on that?
He's absolutely right. And listen, represent my position very, very clearly. You asked me a question about what the boxing community feels like. Dana White alluded to what the public is demanding. He's absolutely positively on the money. And Dana knows that I'm right, just like I know he's right. There are people outside of the boxing ring that have been clamoring for this fight for at least the last year. It's primarily what they talk about. But in the boxing community, you have folks within that community that feel it's an insult for a guy like Floyd Money Mayweather to give an opportunity to a UFC fighter who's never been in the boxing ring. That's how they feel. That's the argument that they're making. And he's also right about the fact that if this were Oscar Delahoya making this fight instead of Dana White with Money Mayweather and obviously Conor McGregor, if this was Oscar Delahoya and he was a part of this and he had an opportunity to make the money that this fight is projected to make, he would be very, very happy with a huge smile on his face. So Dana White is absolutely right about that. But I also think Oscar's right in terms of how folks within the boxing community feels. I think Oscar was real and authentic with saying what he said, but I also think that he would still have a smile on his face if he had an opportunity to make that money, despite how he feels the fight shouldn't happen. If he had an opportunity to make money off of it, he certainly would not have turned it down. So nobody's wrong with what they're saying.
Dana, anything there?
And just so you know, so this fight, yeah, and the thing is this, for the boxing community to be disgusted, first of all, it's about the fans. What do the fans want to see? And if you're a fan of combat sports, this is the greatest end of the year ever. Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor are going to fight. Triple G is going to fight Canelo. I got a great lineup for the rest of this year, and so does boxing. So at the end of the day, I mean, all these guys, the thing that upset me about Oscar Delahoya is he comes out and starts asking fans not to buy the fight. What?
That's fair.
What is that? First of all, number one. Number two, it's an incredible opportunity for fans of combat sports for the end of this year. There's so many great fights, and because sometimes there's big runs and big gaps between big fights. We have nothing but a great lineup at the end of this year, and everybody should be thrilled, including the boxing guys and Oscar Delahoya.
Steve, let me throw this in and say this about Dana White right here. See, this is why I've always said anybody that's a fight of pugilism, you got to love Dana White, because what's the first thing I said when his mic went dead? I said, hey, the man gives people the fights that they want to see. And what he's essentially saying by saying what he just said about Oscar Delahoya, it's not for other people to decide what the public should want. It's for folks in these respective sports, whether it's the UFC or boxing, to give the people what they want, because we are the paying customer. When you look at the UFC, the one thing that's undeniable about Dana White, and why I must sit here and absolutely applaud him, he doesn't wait forever to give us the fights we're clamoring for. We ask for it, he delivers it, and he makes his fighters get up in that octagon and fight. What's the problem with boxing? Boxing historically has procrastinated in terms of dragging their feet and making us wait for the fights that we truly want to see. Now, in Oscar De La Hoya's case, he didn't wait that long. He delivered on this Canelo Alvarez Triple G fight September 16th. Major props to him, because he said he was going to do it before 2017 expired, and he delivered. But far too often than not, whether it's Mayweather, Pacquiao, or anybody else, one of the things that has hurt boxing is they've kept us waiting entirely too long for fights that we clamored for to actually happen. And as a result, even when they did happen, we found ourselves questioning who was beyond their prime. Did they take too much punishment? Did we have to wait too long? Did we miss out on what really would have happened if both of them had fought in their prime? Dana White and the UFC does not do that, and they deserve our profound respect for that.
Well said. The wait is over, about 2 months. Stephen A. said sometimes you got to wait forever, but now the countdown clock is on a little over 2 months. The great perspective of Stephen A.Smith. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Dana, I got one more for you real quick. I think a lot of fans are wondering this. No matter what happens in this fight on August 26th, are we going to see Conor McGregor in UFC again?
I think we will. You know, obviously, you know, Conor and I have been talking a lot throughout this negotiation, and he wants to turn around and fight again this year. And that's after he fights Floyd, he wants to turn around and fight again this year, and that's one of the million reasons why people love Conor McGregor.
Last thing, I kind of lied. Since you brought up the word millions, let me bring it up. Stephen A. basically said $100 million for Floyd. That's what Floyd personally told him it would take for him to step back in. From the money side, from Conor's perspective, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you from everybody's perspective on every side, everybody's happy with this deal. You know, I don't think anybody is bummed out about this deal. Everybody, first of all, the negotiations with Floyd were great. You know, everything went smooth with Conor. It went a lot easier than I thought it would go, and everybody's walking away from this thing happy.